Hey there, and welcome back to Tempting Fate Tours. In this episode, John covers more miles in his 27 horsepower car, Tom rejoins the adventure, and so does his car, on a flatbed. We take both cars on the last leg of our big adventure, and John's 75-year-old survivor hits a very special number. When we last left you, Tom's barn-find Woody, with a transmission that sounded like a washing machine full of bolts, was stashed safely in a secret garage in London, and John's car was in its lockup further north, courtesy of our friend Tom Morris.
Wonderful.
In October, Tom fired up John's car for the first time since June.
Question is, will it start? Well, that's a good sign.
When it had its big European tour. It didn't drive far, just onto a low loader, which is what the Brits call a flatbed truck.
It wants to
travel to the Morris Minor Owners Club in Derby. At the club's request, John's car had gone on display there for a month as a possibly the most original, unmolested 1949 Morris Minor lowlight anyone had ever seen. John had never been to the club, despite doing minor stuff for more decades than he cares to recall, so the next month he took the train up from his relations in London. After a cuppa and a quick tour, it was time to take the car on its next journey. Turned out the battery was dead, but it was hardly the first time the club had to deal with a dead Morris battery. John set out on another route. His destination was the massive NEC, National Exhibition Center, in Birmingham.
this side. Hello.
More than 6 million visitors a year come to an enormous variety of events there, and we were headed for its annual Classic Motor Show, because the Morris Club had asked to use both our cars in their display. This year's theme was Export or Die. Harkening back to the late 40s and early 50s, when the vast majority of British cars built, including both of ours, got shipped overseas to earn hard cash for a war-deprived country. While John drove between hedges along the country roads, Tom's Traveler was making its own journey to the NEC. Sadly, it made that trip on the back of a low loader, driven by a very amenable gent named Nigel, because the sound of scrap metal, let's say it hadn't gotten any quieter. When John arrived at the massive NEC, he promptly got lost among the ring roads, hall access routes, and all the rest. Enormous numbers of signs. So, he called for help, and it turned out he called just at the same time as a guy named Justin, an American who'd moved from Texas to Andorra, and brought his Morris Minor with him. Justin had had a much longer and more impressive journey, almost 1,000 miles, from the bottom of France all the way up to the top, and then further north into the UK after the ferry ride. We were each collected in turn by the club's Mike Dean, and then drove a considerable distance around then to get into Hall 4. And finally, after donning our high-vis vests as required, we got into the hall, and there John saw Tom's Traveler already inside, neatly parked, waiting for him. With all the cars in place, we could do a tour around the whole club display that's been with and then not with the same owner 3 times, but it's back with him. This one here is a fascinating car. It's one that was sent to Canada as a left-hand drive export that didn't sell. So, in fact, they had such a glut of them, they shipped them back to the UK, converted them back to right-hand drive because the demand for Morrises was so huge. The next one was built from a completely knocked-down kit in New Zealand. So this one, belonging to Justin Long, is now in Andorra, but it's originally a California car. The club had included a Where They Went map to help. Some notes. Tom and his wife, Beth, can just be seen incognito on the walk-around. As John did his walk-around with video, Tom videotaped John videotaping. Very meta. Until he got distracted by all the other British cars and wandered off. What I hadn't showed yet was this wonderful crate that the club put together. That's how the cars were shipped. and that's actually reproduction, authentic, stenciled lettering. One of the favorites was a 1972 Dodge Space Van, which was a restored British TV detector van. These vans would cruise through residential areas of the UK to find, quote, license dodgers, people who had televisions but had not paid.
Someone unbelievably boring.
Oh no! It's the TV detector man!
What, you bastards!
There were some older Morrises too, including a green Morris 8 Series E. Its vaguely deco lines had come in the mid-late 1930s, but it continued after the war, and it was the car that was replaced by the Morris Minor, which was a huge advance, as you can see. The showgoers seemed to like all the stories of the export cars. John added a crude windscreen card that explained his car's many travels but very low mileage. Our red lowlight, in fact, even got a write-up in the influential monthly magazine Practical Classics, which was lovely. Over the 3 days of the show, we took tons of photos, answered lots of questions, and chatted with lots of owners. Frankly, the most common question for us was, wait, you brought these all the way from America? Really? At the end of day 3, when the show closes, the tradition is that everybody sounds their horns or otherwise makes a lot of noise. The Polski Fiat Club right across the aisle from us will kind of overshadow us. The two-stroke Saabs emitted huge clouds of oily blue exhaust as they left. It lingered for an hour. Did we join the big exodus? Nope. A wise friend had advised us to go and have a nice dinner to avoid the horrible congestion of up to 1,000 slow old cars exiting a single convention site. Come back the next day, he said. Nigel arrived in his trusty low-loader, drove Tom's Traveler slowly up the ramp, and then Tom and John set out for our next and last adventure. Our destination was the Port of Liverpool. Our trip from Birmingham to Liverpool was 107 miles along A and B roads, but it took us a bit more than 3 hours, with roadworks, fuel stops, and all the rest. We had to get the cars out of Britain directly after the show, within 6 months or less from the date they landed in the country, or we would face a check with a member of His Majesty's Revenue Service who'd be wanting hefty import duties. In the end, the cars were on the ship with 10 days to spare. We stopped for fuel next to a very large lorry, that's British for truck, and shortly after that, the red car crossed its 20,000-mile mark, exactly 75 years and 3 months after it had been sent off to Canada in 1949. Unfortunately, the exact moment is lost to video history because our 27-horsepower, 75-year-old car was losing speed on a steep uphill merge with fast-approaching traffic from behind, and frankly, we had other things on our minds. Bad YouTubers, bad. We did get pictures, however, proving the point. In due course, we arrived in Liverpool, and Tom drove us through the Queensway Tunnel under the River Mersey. Those of you of a certain age may recall a song called Ferry Cross the Mersey. It's that river.
Stay left.
The tunnel opened in 1934, but it retained the title of the longest underwater tunnel well into the 1950s.
looks like we lost each other.
Yeah.
I'll have to
Yeah. Alright. You're going to turn left onto A59. So same thing as
Engage
that run up.
traffic heater.
Yes, is doing. The nice lady in our phone guided us through the city, but at the port we had to ask for help. In fact, we had to ask for help a few
How the hell
times.
do we get out?
You know what that's for?
Lovely.
Save me giving you directions.
Not at all.
And then you can follow this guy behind you. He's going down to heavy left, which is where you need to be forward.
Okay.
Where it's cocked.
Lovely.
On the way, we passed rows and rows of brand new Range Rovers and Land Rovers, built in the UK and being sent overseas, just as our little Morris had been 3/4 of a century earlier. And then, well, it was really and truly the end of our big adventure. Logged the mileage on the red car, it was 20,080 miles, almost exactly 1,000 miles more than what we started with, through the Netherlands and Germany and England. We did retrieve the cars from the Port of Newark in New Jersey a bit later on, in the snow. But that's a story for another day. We hope you've enjoyed this big adventure, multiple episodes, and what we do in old cars. If you like us, please follow us, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends about us. Meanwhile, we have a ton of stuff coming up for this year, which you'll start to see really shortly. So stay tuned, and thanks again. Bye!